Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I am your host, Kevin Wallace, and before we get into this episode, we're going to tell you about our sponsor, Streetside Brewery. Located in historic Columbia, Tusculum, Streetside Brewery is the perfect mix of local watering hole and modern craft beer brewery. They have 24 beers on tap, and I am happy to attest that I have yet to have a bad beer from these guys. On Tuesday nights, they have pint nights with limited edition glassware, and they actually will take $1 off your refills all night. And also, you can catch their next Premier League morning on February 4th when Arsenal takes on Liverpool. That's at 11:30 a.m. And just for listeners of the Postcast, if you mention the Postcast at the bar, they are going to take $1 off of your beer, and you let them know that we sent you their way. Find them at 4003 Eastern Avenue or in the fridge of wherever you're picking up your next beer. So again, a huge thank you to Streetside Brewery for sponsoring the Postcast. And on this episode of the Postcast, we have such a full episode for you. It's insane to think, given the length of these things, that there are topics that we didn't actually get to in this one. In part one, we're talking Brandon Vazquez and Mosquera's next adventures, Barrial's transfer updates. What is going to be happening this final week of January? There was a preseason match, FC Cincinnati and Austin. Duke it out. What happened there? Who was that mystery trialist? Then in part two, we have Bengals writer for The Athletic, Paul Dehner, on. He is an awesome conversation. I really think you're going to enjoy this. We talk a little sports journalism, Bengals. We go all over the place with this one. It was a super fun conversation. We wrap it up with a great question that came from our Discord. Put it all together. You got yourself a postcast. Joining me to talk about all of that and more, joined by Grayson, joined by Chief, once again in person. Gentlemen, this is the third time we've recorded in person. Do we like it?
I think I'm gonna have to start charging you guys rent for using my office.
Well, we have Patreon money now, so we could just turn around and pay you directly through all of this. Grayson, how do you enjoy the dynamic of the live in person versus via Zoom?
Yeah, I like it. It's a little harder for me to go get a refill on my drink.
That's true.
Yeah, we're gonna have to fix that if we keep doing this.
I do get like a little mini fridge in here.
I was just about to say, I have a mini fridge I can loan to your office.
Be down there. We're fine. I just gotta stock up a little bit here. We're still in the process of building the space out a little.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's the early morning, so like a mimosa would not be terrible right now.
Yeah.
A couple of chilled drinks ready to go. I really wanted to bring in some Streetside Brewery in honor of our newest sponsors to crack a can. This felt a little not time appropriate for that move.
A little aggressive. No, I reject society and putting rules on when exactly I can crack a beer and I can have alcohol.
We could have had a beer mosa.
I've had a beer mosa.
A bromosa.
Bromosa.
Are we that worried about drinking a mimosa that we have to call it a bromosa?
I don't know. Just in the moment, it sounded very funny.
I'll put a gavel bang on this one. Men can drink mimosas. Men can drink Bellinis. Men can drink whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, that's our positive masculinity move here. I like this.
Tell the people why, in fact, we are talking about this right now.
Yeah, so very excited. We just signed up a new sponsor, Streetside Brewery, and to me, this feels like a real graduation moment for the Post. We have a member of the Cincinnati brewing community sponsoring us. We're joining up with a fun local industry and tradition, and yeah, Streetside are good guys. I like their beers. I like their location. I lived in Columbia, Tusculum for a long time. They're located like right around the corner from where my dad was born. Like, Awesome stuff. I'm really excited about it. And yeah, more to come with them. I'm excited about this partnership here.
I think it's like when in Mad Men when they signed up their first car. Mm-hmm. This feels very momentous to get a local brewery. And I won't say what car company. They the best analogize to if you've seen Mad Men, but I will say no, I'm not gonna
the tradition of Grayson immediately shitting on any connection we make.
But here's what I will say. I was hugely excited when I found out that Street Side had reached out, or we had reached out, or however that's happened. Because I'm a big fan of the brewery. It's one that I go to, it's one of my go-tos. It's a great option because like my wife and I have very different tastes in beer.
Yep.
And like my wife really likes sours and fruited beers, and they have a wide selection of those.
Yeah.
I go toward the kind of very stereotypical IPA hazy, this time of year, maybe some darker beers.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
They have a lot of really great examples of different beer profiles. And
Yes.
then more than once, I have made the bike ride that has stopovers at Street Side and other breweries along the bike trail.
Yeah.
Like it's actually very easy to bike from Street Side or from my house to Street Side and back. So, I look forward to doing that and claiming my discount.
Oh yeah, I'm going to shamelessly use the discount on my own. And I'm going to pull the. So we were huddled in the stadium during a rain delay, and I was with Kevin and Tommy G. We saw him walking by.
Yes.
In the under area around the stadium by where the stairs are, and Kevin shouts out to Tommy G, "Hey Tommy, I loved you on the postcast." Just trying to build the brand a little bit.
Yeah.
I will shamelessly go to Street Side and say, "Hey, I heard there's a discount code on this podcast, the postcast. Is that a thing? Can I get a beer here?" And not acknowledge that I'm in fact the person that's doing the live read and talking about
No,
this.
of course.
No, absolutely.
No,
$1 is $1. I'm not. I will debase myself for $1 off a beer.
I'm not even going to say I heard it. I'm going to say somebody told me.
Because I don't want to admit that I listened to the show. That's
Somebody
obvious.
told me that if I mention this thing, the postcast, I get $1.
Yeah. Hey, that sounds incredible. Those people must really be negotiating hard on our behalf, whoever they are.
We're hitting the pavement. We're getting the word out. I did that move at the Empanadas box the first time. I was like, "Oh, I heard there's a code," and one of the owners came out and they're like, "Oh, the podcast guy," and I was like, "Ah."
I've been made.
Crap. Yeah, I tried to get away with that one.
In honor of Chris Albright, we got to come up with like a script. It's like somebody told me that there is a postcast and I get $1 if I mention the podcast when I order a beer. That kind of goes with the song, with the Killer song.
Yeah. I need to get Jonah on a full Mr. Brightside remix or parody that's just all about Street Side. I think this will work.
Well, that would be somebody told me.
Ooh. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we can't use Mr. Brightside because it's reserved for wins.
Oh, true.
I don't know.
Not life wins.
Getting $1 off a beer is a pretty big win in my book.
If you drink enough, it's a free beer. You just need to keep buying lots of beers there.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. Buy 6, your 7th one is free. I think that's a good deal.
So that's awesome. Street Side. Excited to do that. That's
Yes.
a favorite of mine. Living right around the corner from there in Oakley. So
You don't have to order all 6 in one sitting.
No.
especially those little ones they do that are like the quintuple stouts. We went there one time when it was Stout Week, me and a friend, and we ordered beers and they all came in like the airline wine glass cups. And my buddy Penny was like, I ordered a full beer. It's like, oh no, there's a full one in there. You'll be okay.
A shot of 25% alcohol.
It was so good.
Yeah.
The Demogorgon, so good.
I will say, too, they are not afraid to experiment. You will find some funky beers on there. A while ago, I don't know if this is in their regular rotation, but they had a green tea IPA for a long time. Like, they'll try anything, which I very much appreciate from a good brewery.
One of my pet peeves with breweries that is when like a brewery experiments like too much.
Yeah.
And there's like not a staple that you can just order.
Yeah.
Right.
If I don't want, something with like lactose and raspberry and cardamom, can I just get like a Pilsner or something?
Right.
And sometimes you do run into that with breweries that are constantly cycling through and get a little too excited, which is great. Like I love when people are excited about what they do, but with Street Side, if you don't want to go nuts, you don't have to.
Right.
They got a ton of they always have just
A beer.
the good selection of like basic, I want a beer
Yeah.
styles. you know?
Yeah. And it's really nice. I really enjoy the place. They have a food option there most times that I've been there, so it's great. I like the brewery a lot. Love that neighborhood. I think it's a very underrated neighborhood. You've got Highmark not too far away. Everybody knows Eli's, but like Tostadas is a great karaoke bar. You got Stanley's not far away.
Local Post right around the corner.
Yeah.
Right next door is a really good spot. And then Jose Salazar just opened a place. It's like a bodega sandwich, New York style sandwich place takeout. Daylily or something like that.
Yeah.
I went there the other day. Chopped cheese. One of the only places in Cincinnati where you can get one.
That's just a messy hamburger.
I know. And it's delicious. So,
But I will say, if any of those places, so those are places. Just go to Street Side.
Yes.
If any of those places want to sponsor the postcast,
we'll talk more about them on a later episode.
We too will dedicate 10 minutes to you.
I would love to have the entirety of like the Columbia Tusculum business corridor sponsoring this podcast.
The official soccer podcast, soccer in quotation marks, of Columbia Tusculum.
Because, look, it's super accessible. You can ride your bike to basically any of these places.
Yep.
You got Reeves right there if you want to do like a little par 3 golf course.
Yeah.
You could ride all the way around Lunkin. Maybe you'll catch the team doing a private flight somewhere.
Right.
Maybe next time they bring in a free agent, you can see them land.
There's a lot of possibilities.
A lot of tie-in opportunities here.
This is big.
Look, I'm not a marketing guy, so
No, but
It's obvious by listening to this content.
I will say R.I.P. the Sky Galley. May we see something resume in that space at some point. But oh god. So once again, thank you to Street Side. But I'm looking at these notes I wrote down here. Guys, I hate to do this to us. There's a lot of soccer to talk about here.
Yeah. Tough scenes for us.
Yeah, this is rough. So I'm going to throw out one. This is, given the timing of when we're recording this is top of mind for me. Start off with Brandon Vazquez tearing up Mexico right now. Bags a brace in his second official game with Monterrey. Dude looks incredible.
Yeah.
This is almost proof that he was in fact sort of in his own head, to me anyway. A very small sample size, but he was in his own head last year, and now he's made his move. He's comfortable, and we finally see the Vazquez that we knew was there.
I think we see what happens when a good player joins a top team that plays in a league where the other teams are overmatched against that team. I mean, he's like, these aren't, and I don't want to take away from it because these are, these aren't like USL level teams he's playing against, but he's playing on Monterrey, and his goals came against Querétaro and Atlético San Luis, which are teams that are simply not in the same class as Monterrey. They don't have player for player. They don't have the same quality that Monterrey has.
Right.
Which, I think plays into Brandon's strengths because he's got quality opponents around him. And if he finds space, he can he'll get his goals. Now that first header against San Luis was incredible.
Yeah.
Like we've seen him do, if not that exact header before, like pretty similar finishes. There was the one he did against, I want to say Serbia in January camp where he got the ball from Julian Gressel, and people were talking about like, oh, Gressel's crossing is so good, and I just thought it was insane because like Vazquez finished that header from like all the way the opposite side of the box and hit bad back post on Jordi Petrovic. Like it's just not. I don't find this surprising. I mean, I think some people. I've seen U.S. media talk about him now. Like, why isn't this guy higher up in the U.S. depth chart? Well, like, we've been saying...
Welcome to this debate.
We have been saying since before the World Cup that these are the exact qualities that the U.S. men's national team doesn't have in its roster.
Right.
And he has shown when he's played for the U.S. that if they need a goal coming off the bench... he can provide that, and he's like he's one of the only people in the striker pool who can consistently provide that.
It's the U.S. men's national team striker pool. It's like a baseball bullpen of all right-handed pitchers, and this is the lefty that they've been missing forever. Even if you don't want to play this style, you still want to have the ability to do something different when nothing is working off the bench. I'm happy for Brandon. I do think it's a mix of both your points. I think it's the fact that he is on a team now where they are not salary constrained the way an MLS team is, where they can have good players everywhere.
Yeah.
A team like Monterrey doesn't have to make a compromise at a position because we've overspent elsewhere. They can spend whatever it takes to make sure that they have a player they like at every position. That's not to say that they have a bottomless pit of money to spend, but they can spend. And other teams in Mexico can't. They don't have the quality of players, and he's a striker. He depends to a certain level on good service, about having good players to keep the field spaced properly for him, and it's going to his play style. And now at this point, it's a different kind of pressure on him. In the past, this past year, the pressure was to perform and get the transfer.
Yep.
Now the pressure is perform to the levels of expectations of my team.
Yep.
And the transfer fee and what was placed upon me. And it's a different kind of pressure, and it's a pressure he's thriving under currently, it seems like. But I also want to, note, Brandon's a streaky player.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what this conversation looks like in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and see if he keeps this torrid pace up. So I'll tell you something, if he keeps this pace up, he's probably not going to stay long in the Mexican leagues either. I know Monterrey isn't a selling team, but at a certain point, if you got a guy that's absolutely annihilating things, like, people are going to come calling. Yeah. Whether or not they sell is a different thing. I have a more meta question I'd like to ask about this if the group is ready for it.
Not yet.
Okay.
I do want to say, like, to your point, it's still very early, right?
Yeah.
If he keeps up the pace, wins the Golden Boot, maybe he does get the opportunity to realize that European dream, right? But to the other kind of pressure, if Monterrey drops a couple of games to Tigres in America, and Brandon doesn't find the back of the net, and God forbid, misses a sitter or two,
which we've seen
in those games, he's not a different player than he is today,
right?
But how do you handle? But that will be a different kind of pressure than he's experienced in his career, and how a player handles that is very important, because it can really affect people. And I think Brandon's got a good head on his shoulders, and I have had nothing but confidence that Brandon was going to go to Mexico and score a bunch of goals.
Yeah.
And, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's, according to the Scuffed Discord, they do a great, like, after each camp, they have everybody on there ranks, like, 100 U.S. men's national team pool players on a scale of 1 to 100, and they publish like their top 50. I think Brandon was the 34th best player in the pool, according to that I'll say a fairly knowledgeable group of people. They'll obviously have their favorites versus, everybody else or whatever. But yeah, I wonder how long it takes for him to just start working up that level.
I think they've been really hard on him.
Yeah.
And I think it's because people overrate certain skills and underrate other skills. In particular, I think people underrate Brandon's physical tools, largely because it can't really be taught. Mm-hmm. But like, you can't undervalue that. And I think it's like one reason why a lot of players aren't fully appreciated for how they are in soccer, because they're not like so technical,
right, that
you're thinking of like Ronaldinho.
Right.
I think the problem is deeper than that with the U.S. men's national team. Not to really get off on a tangent, but it is a fan base by and large that really doesn't have a good comp in its history for a player like Brandon Vazquez. It's a fan base that was raised where the star players have always been wingers, have always been people coming in off the wing that are creators, like Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey to a certain point with his technical ability to create. And now Christian Pulisic is the flag bearer for American soccer. And the idea of a team that is built around or that scores goals with a target man striker that's a big body, that's not unfamiliar to a lot of other teams in the world, but to America, we've just never designed our teams to work through that. And the people that we sort of laud as the heroes of American soccer are work rate guys, are guys where you can see the product on the effort on the field in terms of speed, moving the ball, creating out of nowhere. Those are America's like heroes, for lack of a better word. And with Brandon Vazquez, it's like, oh, this is a type of player and a style of play that our national team has just never utilized or seen. And I think it's undervalued as a result of that.
Yeah, so like I think about a guy like, so to first get off the men's national team and get back on it. A player we talked about, I think a lot on this podcast, or more than we do talk about international players, is like Olivier Giroud. Mm-hmm. And like, when I listened to Men in Blazers back in the day, they would always shit on Giroud, right? They would make fun of his like touch and all that. But the man, all he ever did was score goals at the highest level his entire career.
The time.
In the biggest teams in the world, right? And then and win the World Cup,
Yeah, I believe he's France's all-time leading goal scorer.
Yeah, and on the men's national team front, I think when you talked about, who our best players have been, I also, think about a guy like Brian McBride.
Yeah.
Who I've heard podcasts of former national team players talk about like him not being a good soccer player. Like just like being terrible in like more like tongue in cheek, but like being terrible at a lot of the drills they were doing.
Right.
And a lot of like the one touch drills they were doing and everything. But especially for an American, he scored a lot of goals in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And he scored, a lot of goals for the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah. Very iconic player.
With just like totally writing off a player like that because of your tendency toward appreciating like guys who are great in like small-sided games.
Right.
Yeah. I just think it's you're failing to appreciate the full breadth of what can be on display in a soccer field.
Yeah.
And like Jesus Ferreira is not going to hit, and it's no shade to him, but like Jesus Ferreira's got a lot of really good qualities. He's not going to hit a header like Brandon just had against San Luis, right? And do you want to write that out of the game? No. That's spectacular.
You want that option, like to go to the classic like golfing analogy. It's like all of our strikers are like little pitching wedges, and you have Brandon, which is ostensibly a large, massive driver in this case, and it's like, hey, we can dink and dunk our way around the box, or we can just throw this guy up when we're down a goal and just hope for the best and just pound it in there.
And the other thing, the last thing I'll say on this before we get to I do want to hit the meta narrative, is people still talk about Brandon like he's not fast.
Yeah.
And, straight line sprint speed there's probably a lot of players in the pool who are fat who would beat Brandon in a foot race.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I always want to remind people of is the goal he scored against New York Red Bull in the playoffs in 2022.
Yep.
He reached the highest speed of any player in MLS on a goal scoring play. And so, like, you can be fast all day.
Yep.
But what matters from a striker is how fast can you go and finish a play.
Right.
Right?
How does the ball get in the net? I don't care how fast you are getting there.
If you're not going to finish a play at your top speed,
Yeah.
if you got to slow down to, like, keep the control you need or to get open or to make your move, that's how fast you are.
Yeah.
You're as fast as you can be while making a play.
This is like when Usain Bolt tried out for Dortmund and I think even played for an Australian team. It's like, that's great. Like, your 100-meter dash is really good. Can you get on the end of a cross with that? Can you dribble at that speed?